Okay, my person is only here for motivate the people and wake up the audience because it's very, very late and we are the last one who will present now. But I can tell you that this would be a different presentation because we have more orientated to DevCon, and we are thinking about there are all programmers here and hacking into the laptops, and we had seen a lots of presentation with talkings. So this presentation would be a little bit different. We had prepared a lot of time, too much time. And yeah, I will overhand now and I will say something at the end so that nobody get lost at the end.
So, hi everyone, I'm Sagun Karki and here's my colleague Ahmed. We are developers at Minervis. Am I audible clearly? Okay. Oh, okay. So the title of our presentation is From Forms to Schema. So in this presentation, we will give a quick overview of how REST is coming in shape in ILIAS, what are the challenges we are facing, and why schema and validation is important topic now. And I go to the next slide. Okay, so and here we will talk about the introduction and challenges, the solution, and the importance of schema and validation, future challenges, and so on. So most modern app depend heavily on communication between each other, and if you have already come across connecting a service to ILIAS, then we already know how difficult it is to create API specification. It means using different tools and requiring special solutions. So it is not always an easy task to make everything work. And so so the question is, what if we could write a code once and the system could create a clear and safe API automatically for us? So introducing our new web service in ILIAS. So we will show here how we can leverage the existing system and then components to create a unified solution for consistency. So one of the key challenges we wanted to solve is the lack of standardized API specification. Because of this, it makes it difficult to maintain and extend our web services, and it prevents us from ensuring consistent behavior across all methods. Without a clear specification, another major issue arises, which is validation. So although in SOAP by default we could have a strict validation, but in our current implementation it doesn't enforce these rules, and if we were to add more checks, then it would create a new problem like multiple and disconnected places for validation. And another thing is, for a single action we might need to validate data in several places, for example in API request, then again in dashboard form, and then there is another DB validation, and if you add another REST endpoint, then there's another. So all of a sudden we are maintaining the same validation logic for same action in multiple places. So this is quite inefficient, and we need a single source of truth, like one clear schema for each user action regardless of how it's triggered. So you shouldn't have to do the same tasks multiple times to get the same result. So this is the core problem we wanted to solve, and our solution is completely schema driven. And our ILIAS RESTful web service is fully integrated with the activity system, and that means ILIAS core will automatically provide these services to multiple consumers, be it REST, SOAP, or UI forms, and activity will act as a single source of truth, meaning the incoming request, validating incoming request, and then validating outgoing responses as well, and at the same time supporting multiple protocols, for example REST, SOAP, and even with modern features like pluggable middleware. And it will also have a centralized system for managing and reporting errors efficiently. So now I would like to welcome my colleague Ahmed. He will take forward from here in much more detail.
Hey everyone, can you hear me? Okay. So let's explain really quickly what would happen in our web service. So when a client calls our web service, and HTTP request comes to the web service, and then it runs through multiple layers of middlewares, or maybe something like routing the request, and then more middlewares. Then it reaches ILIAS, and where it communicates with ILIAS, it doesn't communicate with the database, for example, directly, and that would be through the activity. Think of activity is the actual handler for our request. And when we do our validation and input validation and middlewares, before it reaches the activity, we make sure that the activity has all its required data to make a successful request. Then it does all the work, all the let's say it communicates, it processes the request, it communicates with the database if it's needed, and even it produces the results. After that, the response begins back its journey back to our web service, and on the way out, it goes through additional steps like more error handling and more middlewares. Then finally, some output validation to make sure that we return a consistent and secure response every time. So in short, like the request flows again to our web service. We do some processes on it, then delegate it to ILIAS, then get the request back from response back from ILIAS, do some more processing on it, and then present it back to the client as a response, secure and reliable response. But what is activity? I'll try to explain it very fast and very abstract. Activity is where the actual business logic lives. Imagine it as a self-contained package of a single task. That task could be something like create a course. That's a query. That's a command to our database, or that would happen changes to our database, or just a query like get course information. And this is the core component for handling all the logic that will be triggered either by user click on a button or an external call to our web API. Each activity provides a clear input definition. It works like a blueprint for what it requires from data from the request, something like text fields or checkboxes. This is used by our UI this is used to automatically build the UI forms that controls the activity. And a corresponding output definition describes the data that returned from the activity to ensure constant and reliable return data provided to the user each time. With that concept, we could expose the same information that provides for the activity for something like the UI forms, something like REST web service or SOAP web service, or even more things that we could do later. So what would be the payoff for our web services? The answer would be a dynamic activity-based routing. So from the activity, we can instantly register a unique web service route for this specific activity, and the system automatically would set the correct request method, for example, get or post, depending on the activity type, either it's a command or a query. Also, the new route is built on the same input and output definition that drives the UI forms. So when a route is called, the web service will take care of everything after finding the corresponding activity. But the benefits doesn't stop to the form UI or a dynamic routing, but also go beyond that, because we could parse the same input blueprint and we can validate it against any scenario we could imagine. That creates a universal validation layer that applies not just to the REST web services, but also across all web services, ensuring consistency everywhere. And we won't be reinventing the wheel. We won't read new code. We will be using existing components. For example, we are using activity. It's an existing component already in ILIAS, but we will also use the refinery to do some validation and type checks to handle transformation and checking before the response reaches the client. And the process won't stop only for the inputs. It completes a full cycle with also the output as well. Because after defining an activity, it has all the information. We delegate the work to it. After it finishes its execution, it also has output definition. And we could use that output definition to generate a schema. This schema, we could test the results against or validate the results against. The data will be returned again using the refinery to validate, but also guarantee that we want to return exactly what we want, not just like the data or the keys, but also strict types, that because that would allow us to automatically correct any potential type mismatch before sending the final response. So we have our input definition, we have our output definition. We also, there is another key element that is provided by the activity that we could use to our advance. This is the description. Every activity has a human readable description for what it does. And with those three parts, those essential key parts, the input, output, blueprints, and the description, everything, we have everything we need to automatically generate a complete open API specification for our web service. This is a very important advantage because this means that your API documentation is no longer manual and separate task. And also make sure that the schema generated is 100% up to date for the actual features that you have on the web services, because it is 100% guaranteed that every change in the activity itself will be reflected in the documentation. So what could we do with that always current, up-to-date Open API schema? Well, the system will use it to generate a fully interactive guide for our entire API. This wouldn't be a static text guide, but it will be a very interactive and rich web page using tools like Swagger UI. It's guaranteed to be in sync with the live system. And since the result is a live explorable playground, it will help developers to use it and see every endpoint, understand the requirements, understand the expected output without any kind of guesswork or ambiguity. This is our current stage, but what would come next? So our immediate focus would be to automate the full cycle, starting from creation all the way ending with API documentation generation. We want also to enhance our validation capabilities to support more complex scenarios, like, for example, cross field validation or conditional validation with cross-field validation altogether. We can do whatever scenario we want. And later, we want also to do some major effort to integrate other ILIAS components to work seamlessly within that ecosystem. And finally, we want to begin to replace our current SOAP implementation to work with and migrating existing functionalities to this newly more powerful activity-based framework. Yeah, so I will just quickly summarize our takeaways from what we introduced. We, of course, introduced our new web service framework that provides robust and truly scalable solution for building APIs in ILIAS. we also saw how generating a schema directly from our definitions allows us to enforce consistency and automate data validation. And our activity-based design is the center of all of that, as it promotes a clean and maintainable separation of concerns. And finally, since we are providing underlying modern stack, it will give us flexibility and extensibility, extendable architecture ready for future growth and development for whatever we want. That was all from us from now. Please don't hesitate to contact us for future workshop proposals on our email, info@nervous.com. Yeah. Thank you for your time and attention.
Okay. Yeah, I understand a little bit more, but not fully, because it's not my job. But if you have any questions about what's presented before, then we should ask now, because my part would be more an organizational thing about the special interest group REST. So are there any questions for what we had seen? No? Okay. Then we are going on. Yeah. I've heard this a lot now, what we are doing here with activities and web service REST and so on. And of course, we had won the first prize from the advisory council, where we can do some basic and generally things, which is very, very helpful, but not enough. We know that. So the next question is how we would like to organize our special interest group. We are thinking about that this should be the kickoff for this special interest group. And I thought in the past, the whole time, about the topics and how we would like to organize these workshops. And then I thought, maybe I will ask you, what are your expectations when you are interested in web services or in REST? We know REST is only marketing worked. For example, my thoughts was about, we can think about products we would like to combine with ILIAS, like Azure AD, like Salesforce, like whatever. Or we can think about workshops where we would like to combine special ILIAS objects with these new web services and activities. Yeah. And then my mind explode about what we should do now. So my question is now, what are your ideas? What are your expectations to the special interest groups, or do you have some ideas about the workshops? Should it be more product driven, or should it be more, yeah, for the ILIAS features or technical topics? Or should we combine these workshops? Otherwise, I will make only funding workshops about features.
Maybe it could be a generic one in the beginning, and then in the SIG itself you can get the topics more.
Ah, this is a good idea.
Yeah.
We will tell the questions again in our next online workshop, which will be the kickoff workshop.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great.
You
Then
can
we are
make
finished.
it generic, and then you can decide in the
Yeah, no. This was one of my thinkings too. Okay, I think it's very late enough, and we are hungry or whatever. Yeah, then I will go give up to Mr. Kunkel to have the. So thank you very much.